Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. Today, we will be continuing on our period three, I guess you could say lecture series or whatnot, but period three, American Revolution is what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it. Let's take notes. All right. So, Chapter 5 in your textbook called The American Revolution. Hello, John. All right, so the States United. So after the battles of Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill, the colonists are going to come up with the Olive Branch Petition. And this is to appeal to King George to, hey, we get it. We don't need to fight about it. We can handle this like adults. And of course, King George III, KG3, King George III is going to reject this. And it's quick to note, 1775, remember like I ended last lecture, 1775, 1774, 1773, early 1776, colonists did not want to break away and become independent. They wanted to go back to the days of salutary. See, I still can't get over that word. Salutary neglect. So British recruitments are going to fight Americans, and they're going to be a hodgepodge of, what's that word? A coalition. Yeah, there we go. So you're going to have some Native Americans fighting against the colonists. You're going to have Southern slaves. They're going to promote to Southern slaves like, hey, come fight with us. And if we win, you'll be guaranteed your freedom. So who doesn't want their freedom? And of course, they're going to hire this mercenary group of Hessians. They are German mercenary fighters that are known for their strong killings. And one sense of revolution, especially in the colonies, is Thomas Paine's pamphlet called Common Sense, which is going to go public around January 1776, and it's going to be aimed at Americans who are on the fence. They don't know if they should fight or go against the British, or be in the middle and be like, I'm a pacifist. So it's going to urge Americans to use their common sense and break away. Then you're going to have the Second Continental Congress is going to meet after the first year, and they're going to urge and continue the boycott, remain strong, and trade with all other countries except England. And that's going to, piss them off a little bit. Remember? They want to line their pockets with colonial money anyways. And July 1776, they're going to meet and they're going to come up with a list of grievances and also declare independence, Declaration of Independence. Here's the olive branch being carried by a dove, signifies peace. That's what an olive branch does, signifies peace. It's rejected by our boy, King George III, and T-Pain. All right, so the States United. So you're going to have two sides, obviously. Loyalists, those are, supporters of King George, supporters wanting to remain loyal to England. Then you have the Patriots, who are going to fight against the British, and they are for independence. And going to get ahead of ourselves, but Articles of Confederation is our first form of a federal central government, and it was very weak, right? And there was no real executive branch, and it didn't have powers to tax, because we know wars cost money. And then obviously with the war, France is gonna, come in and be a real help to the colonists, because following the Battle of Saratoga, which kind of kind of put the French on one side or the other, because they were actually going to step in and mediate it. And if not, if they saw that the British were going to steamroll through the colonists, they would have backed the British, and two super rival powers going against the colonists probably wouldn't exist right now. But this Battle of Saratoga proved invaluable, and it was because the French saw that and they said, "Hey, we got a chance. We're going to back this. We're going to put all our money in, and we're going to help support the colonists." And thanks to the French. This is drafting the Articles of Confederation shortly after 1777. So the creation of state governments. So republicanism is this idea that all power comes from the people. Democracy and all, republicanism, representation. But was there real equality for all people involved in these new colonies that were becoming states? The simple answer is no. Slavery still existed, and the other half of the planet, the women, they still had few rights. So state constitutions, governors could not hold seats in the state legislatures, and there would be property requirements for voting. So you obviously had to be, you were going to be male, white, and a owner of property. And one thing that each state, stemming back to their colonial days, is all the religious toleration. And they're going to create statutes of religious freedom across all state governments. And of course, slavery. Can't talk about America without slavery, right? So slavery obviously will be outlawed in northern states, but it will persist in border states and the obvious South. The North, they don't really have a need for slavery. Maybe if you're one of the first and you're descendants of a family that had slaves that, have farms in Pennsylvania and in some places in New York, not really Massachusetts or Rhode Island, Connecticut, but they're more based on manufacturing, trading, right? Not so much farming. And hey, the South has it. This is a map of what is to become the United States of America, and these border states during the Civil War are the ones that are going to have slavery, but they're going to be within the Union fighting, and the South obviously are these states. But right now we're just talking about the Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And this is Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence. All right, so the search for a new national government. So the Articles made a very strong legislative branch, and the powers under the Articles, they can conduct foreign relations with other countries, and they could borrow money, which helps because wars, they cost money. But the powers not stated under the Articles of Confederation, they could not regulate trade. How else are you going to make money? And they could not collect taxes. And that's an obvious sign because, they wanted to go against the British, and the British were taxing them. So they wanted to, not tax their own people. And this is one of the problems with the Articles of Confederation. All 13 states were required to approve and amend the Articles of Confederation. So if they wanted to bring up amendments, all 13 states would have to be in agreement. And if they weren't, so be it. And this is back then where representation was equal for each state. So if you're a small state like Rhode Island, you get one vote. If you're a big state like Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, you get one vote. And this is where the beginnings of our new government back then, of, Congress, the houses of Congress, where House of Representatives is based on population, and the Senate is equal representation. So, yeah, there you go. So, another foreign policy problems. Britain, they weren't following the Treaty of Paris, which even is the treaty that ends the Revolutionary War between the colonists and the British. So you have two big land ordinances. It's called the Land Ordinance of 1785, and this is where Congress could now survey and sell Western lands, and they would sell 36 sections, and a sale from one of the sections went towards public schools. So now, if you got the money for this land, you can buy 36 square acres, 36, or is it miles? Acres, miles, something like that, for land. And one section went towards public schools, kind of stemming from that Massachusetts Bay Colony. I can't think of it right now, but where they demanded like a town of, what was it, 60? No, that was statehood. If your town was at this certain population, you had to provide public schooling for it. But one of the more famous land ordinances is also this Northwest Land Ordinance of 1787. And, I was getting ahead of myself. So once a territory reached 60,000 people, it could apply for statehood. And a good thing about the Land Ordinance of 1787 is slavery would be banned in the Northwest Territories. Now, remember, Northwest isn't the Northwest as we know today. It's that Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin area. That's the Northwest to them. And then you have the Treaty of Greenville, which was a treaty with the Native Americans, which moved many out of Ohio and Indiana territories. And it was kind of stated that they want to be removed again following this treaty. But as we all know, they were. So Northwest Territory, here you go. 1803, Ohio becomes a state, and, all this. And here's that 36 land plot. And usually it was around kind of in the middle. The school would be probably around this 16 plot of land that would be given in the Land Ordinance 1785 that would be given designed for public school. Okay, so there's a post-war depression. Okay, the war ends in the Revolutionary War technically kind of ends in 1781 after the Battle of Yorktown. Treaty isn't signed until 1783. So 1784 to 1787, the country is in debt. And remember, the Articles can't enforce taxation. And if these states are coming together to amend Articles, to make amendments to the Articles of Confederation to introduce taxation, if one state refuses it, it all falls apart. So it's going to be very tough, right? And one of the other groups that were hit by this depression following the war is farmers. And many farmers were in debt, so they decided, they're going to argue for increasing the money supply. And this is going to come up again in about 100 years, where farmers are going to also ask for increasing the money supply. But however, if you increase the money supply, that is going to cause inflation. But that's going to be good for farmers because they can pay off their debts faster. It's not going to be good for the rest of everyone else, because although the money, the more money you put in, the lesser the value of it. So the lesser the value, the lesser the money that the farmers actually have to pay, and actually helps farmers. And it's going to make this standoff between the farmers and the wealthy in early United States. And then you're going to have one of the more famous rebellions You had Bacon's Rebellion. Now you're going to have Shays' Rebellion, who was a former Revolutionary War vet, and he's going to call for paper money for some tax relief. And another one that we kind of take for granted is this imprisonment for debt. So if you were in debt to someone, you'd go to jail, and it's not like it is today, because your boys got college debt, and I ain't in jail, so kind of nice. And this end of foreclosures, foreclosures, banks lends you money. You got to pay the bank back. If you can't make payments to the bank takes possession of your home and kicks you out. So that was happening to a lot of farmers, and Daniel Shays is going to lead a rebellion. And there are two significances. It's going to show that the articles was weak. Also, when you have a guy leading a rebellion in this newly formed government country, and the Articles of Confederation didn't even set aside for a colonial militia, a colonial army, you're gonna be able to make some significant steps towards change. And it's also going to show that the Articles of Confederation, you're going to need a stronger government in order to put everyone in place, because if you don't, lawlessness and anarchy will resume. So that's Daniel Shays, Stop Foreclosures. I'm just going to read these topics, or you can look at these topics. These are past SAQ, DBQs that were on the APUSH test in the past, and this is what they look like. So if you want to practice these at your own pace at home, you can. So they are: analyze the political, diplomatic, and military reasons the United States victory in the Revolutionary War. Confine your answers to 1775 to 1783. So you can't really, this is where you got to stay within the time barriers. You can't really go before, you can't really go after. You got to talk about the war itself, wartime. Okay, analyze how the ideas, experiences of the Revolutionary era influenced the principles embodied in the Articles of Confederation, right? That idea of don't want to tax. We hate taxes from the British. We're not going to tax our own people. And evaluate the extent to which the Articles of Confederation was effective in solving the problems that confronted the new nation, i.e. land, getting statehood, all that fun stuff. And outlawing slavery. Hey, that was the first actual legislation to outlaw it, right? So good stuff there. All right, so that concludes Chapter 5. It was a fairly short one. Remember how I told you the APUSH exam is not really going to look at war tactics and, George Washington crossing the Potomac River in the mist of night. It's not like that. So there you go. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, smash that like button. And as always, stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.